So, we have a very interesting situation. We now know that Deshaun Watson is eligible to be suspended. That's really all we know at this point. So, you've heard a lot of people say that Watson, Judge Sue Robinson has mentioned that Watson should be suspended 6 games. So, a lot of people are thinking that that is what the suspension will be, and there's plenty of reason to believe that's what it will be. But it doesn't mean that it is going to be that. All we know right now is that that's what the judge's ruling is. And the judge's ruling simply means that if they say there should be a suspension, then Goodell can suspend a player. That's how the deal is worked out. It doesn't necessarily mean that Goodell has to suspend Watson for 6 games. He could suspend for less, he could suspend for more. All that we know is that there will be a suspension now, but 6 games seems like a baseline. It seems like a reasonable expectation for around where it could be, which of course has a lot of people upset about it. And to be honest, for me, I'm not going to, I didn't think there was going to be a harsh suspension for this. It's the world we live in. That's kind of what I was thinking. I also should mention right here at the top, if you want to hear more about this situation, I made a video on this channel called The Monster just, a little bit ago, talking about the whole situation, sort of a deep dive into all of it. And I've gotten some positive reception to that. So if you want to check it out and, spend an hour figuring out exactly, what the situation is, watch that out. Watch out for that. And hopefully it'll, make it clear to understand. But yeah, as of right now, what we do know is that the NFL has 3 days to appeal the Deshaun Watson 6-game suspension. So in 3 days, we will know, is it just going to be 6 games or will they appeal it and try to make it longer? I think it's very reasonable to believe they may suspend and make it longer. I don't think that's out of the question because I think that it is kind of a bad look for the NFL, and all the NFL cares about here is not having it be a bad look. That's all they care about. There's nothing for them whatsoever about like the ethics of this situation. They're just trying to make sure that they look good. That's what we know the NFL does. That's the history of the NFL, and I think that's part of why a lot of people have brought up, so Calvin Ridley got suspended for a year, but Deshaun Watson's only going to get suspended for 6 games. Again, worth noting, we do not know if it's going to just be a year, but or if it's just going to be 6 games, but it's always worth mentioning with this stuff is that, the Calvin Ridley thing was not an ethical suspension. That had nothing to do with ethics. That was simply because they just don't want players betting on games. So, yes, I get it that, like, obviously you compare those two things and it's like, why, but it's not that simple. These things are never that simple. So, I get it, but that's just not how these things work. One thing that I found weird that just was a head-scratching comment that Tom Pelissero tweeted out that I don't fully understand is it says, Judge Sue L. Robinson's decision says Deshaun Watson's pattern of behavior was egregious, but notes the behavior was nonviolent sexual conduct in explaining the decision to suspend him 6 games. I guess, how do you define nonviolent? I guess, he didn't, injure anybody necessarily, but there was physical conduct. So again, a weird quote. Maybe she is a judge, so maybe she just simply meant there was no actual violence taking place. But definitely odd to say the least. It's just one of those weird situations that take place. I already said my thought on what a suspension would be, but again, Deshaun Watson at the end of the day ends up losing $345,000 in this situation and will be suspended for 6 games. The Browns are big winners. The Browns made the correct football decision and will make a lot of money now having Deshaun Watson. So that's the reality of the situation if it is, in fact, 6-game suspension, which, of course, it still could be. So, yeah, it's just an interesting situation. This whole thing is interesting. It's unfortunate. It's weird, and it really just does make you think, there was never going to be a suspension that was going to make it, make justice be served, right? That's just the reality of the situation. These women, who I should, make sure we all remember, these women are the victims here. Calvin Ridley is not the victim. As much as we all feel bad that Calvin Ridley suspended for a year, the victims in this situation are the women who, I'm not going to say all of it here, but if you go back and watch that, the video I made, you can hear about all of the, tough things that were alleged. Because again, what the other thing that has to be mentioned is these are still all allegations. So, that is kind of the way I view it. There's some weird things that have happened. I know that Pro Football Talks tweeted out, the great Pro Football Talk tweeted out, I'm sure this is just a weird coincidence, but the personal conduct policy has suddenly disappeared from the items made available to the media at the NFL communications website, which is, is a bit suspicious. But again, I'm not big into like conspiracy theories. I'm like, wait, what's this happening? Is there big, there could be actually some valid reasons, and one of those valid reasons could be they just took it down because they, don't want to deal with the media hassle right now, kind of stuff. So I don't know. Again, it's very weird. It's very bad. I think it's a bad look for the NFL. I really do think it's a bad look for the NFL if the suspension stays for 6 games. Like I was just sort of scrolling through Twitter before making this video, just trying to see what the general reaction is. And someone just tweeted out, 24 women accused Deshaun Watson of sexual misconduct in civil lawsuits. He suspended 6 games. And that has that's sort of blowing up a little bit. That's by Brooke Pryor, who I've never heard of before, but that's a tweet that ended up on my timeline. It's just one of those things that like that headline is very bad for the NFL, and you just have to imagine that Goodell is going to try to make this longer because it's just a bad look for the NFL. That's the reality of the situation. So it's fascinating. It's very interesting. I think that at this situation, what's going to happen is that if Watson comes back in week 7. You just have to think like, the Browns are in a pretty good spot. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. They went out, they got this quarterback. They would be a lot better off. This year, they're better off having made the Deshaun Watson trade, which is not something I necessarily thought would happen. I thought it would at least take a little bit of time. I thought that, eventually it would be a good football move, but not immediately. So, a lot of people are going to be rooting against the Browns this year. There's no denying that. And, some people say, hey, it's allegations. You shouldn't care. You just watch, people play because they're football players. Right. So I don't know. It's just a weird situation. But again, wanted to make the video to just, again, explain, that's the main thing I wanted to do with this video, is just explain what actually is happening, what actually goes on with this situation and what it means. Because I think some people are under the impression that it's a 6-game suspension period, that's the end of the sentence. Not quite the case, but seems like there's a good chance that it could be the case. So, that's what I think of all this stuff. Let me know what you think of this stuff in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.